As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. I'm never gonna give up, fall down.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WMHHLP 103.5 FM, your home, Community Radio.
I'm never gonna give up.
Good morning. Want to welcome everyone that's listening in. I know you could have been tuned in somewhere else, but you're spending some time with us. So hopefully we'll make it interesting for you and you will come away learning something or reaching out to a resource that you didn't know was available. Today with us, though, we have Mrs. Ebony Jackson Shahidi, who is the director of the Department of Health for the city of Bridgeport. So we're going to just talk to her a little bit to get to know her in this Women's History Month so she could tell her own story. Yesterday was International Women's Day. So we want to big up our women that are contributing positively to the community, and Ms. Jackson Shahid is one of them. And I want to thank Tom Ficklin for allowing us to have this discussion on his platform. And Harry, who makes everything work so smoothly. Good looking out, Harry, man. So, Ms. Jackson Shahid, Bridgeport Director of Health. You started with the city back in 2021. Official? That's when it was made official?
Yes, it was.
September. Okay. You want to tell us a little bit how you got on this track?
Sure. I don't know if I should start from the beginning or just how I got here at the city.
I think starting from the beginning with your story. I know there's a part where you were doing research. You're a researcher. Published some papers. So yeah, let's get into it.
So I actually had many careers before I actually landed here. And I think, for a lot of people who, have in their mind to actually go down one road, I always say that you land maybe on different roads to get to where you're supposed to be. So everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
But I started out as a health educator. So I have a bachelor's in health education. And I actually was a teacher because I did like the whole student teaching thing. And I was like, I'm going to be an educator. And so I taught for a few years. I did middle school and I did high school. I taught in Newark, New Jersey.
You took the praxis and all that?
Well, for health education, you don't have to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you don't have to for health education. But I did teach physical education and health education, sexual education to high school students at Barringer High School in Newark, and also Al Medina School in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
And so, so I was there for a few years.
Like Newark, New Jersey?
Yeah, Newark. I went to Rutgers University.
I spent a fair amount of summers in Newark, New Jersey. I have family there. One of the reasons I'm a Mets fan, but that's another
okay. And then I graduated ultimately from Montclair State.
Okay.
So I thought I was going to stay in New Jersey, for the rest of my life, and I was going to be teaching. But it didn't happen that way because, I got married to a lovely gentleman and I moved to New York. So I ended up teaching in New York for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided that I wanted to do something else with the health education portion and not just teach. So I ended up working with City Harvest and doing some programming. So that was an amazing experience. City Harvest is really big in the city, and they basically work with inner city around food. Around food and security.
Okay.
And so I just learned so much there because it was a new initiative, a new program. And I just, worked with a team of amazing women and we just wrote programs. And so that was really awesome. So I took that experience and then I moved somewhere else. And then I started doing community health, maternal child health for this organization called Safe Space. And I ran that program. And it was amazing because I was working with an underserved population, undocumented population. And basically, we would find women who were in their prenatal stage, and we would bring them to give them lots of education and support, and then bring them through the birthing stage into up until the child was 1 year old. And then we would refer them to this program called Healthy
So
Families.
with that, with the prenatal care, did you guys see a reduction in death and mortality of fetal births or moms with that population? And were you guys using like midwives or doulas?
So that was the whole point of the program, was to reduce mortality rates in women of color, as well as, building relationships and bonds between the mother and the child. And during that time, I actually became a doula. And I also became a lactation consultant. And that was all a part of some of the services that we provided. So me, being the person that was running the program, they also sent me for those further education, to help mothers out. And so then that started me on, being a doula, not only for the population that I was serving in Queens, but for other women in New York and Connecticut. And it was a very rewarding experience, because my mother.
Is there programming like that here in Connecticut?
There is. I mean, there are programs for doulas all over, but there is a process. You can go to any school to be a doula. However, you have to go through the international doula process, where is after you get your certification, you have to experience 2 live births, and it just has to be documented, and then you actually go ahead and apply for your international certification.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you were saying something about your mother, I think.
Yes, I was going to say that was the bonding experience with my mom, because my mother has 7 children. And so I think me being the oldest, I think being a doula was something that we were able to bond on together, since that was something, birthing was a very big part of her life. So the fact that I was a doula, it was just something that we were able to bond on. And so I really appreciated that experience. Actually, my mother, myself, and one of my younger sisters actually took the class together.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And had some various careers leading up to this point. Is there information around that, and any programming specifically in Bridgeport that's being done to reduce mortality and morbidity in prenatal in women of color?
Actually, there is a huge program that is happening in Bridgeport right now. It's fairly new, but basically it will be available to all women who qualify. I believe you have to be receiving some sort of Medicaid or Medicare. And basically you will have access to a home visiting nurse after you deliver your child. So there will be some sort of like a home visiting program where somebody will come out, a community health worker, and you'll have access to a nurse, but they will be able to come out to your home, and they'll help you with some of the same things that, the program that I worked on in New York, basically helping you bond with the child if you're having issues with lactation, really just being a support system to the mother and the family unit. I think that's so important. I think that that's part of our like American culture. Like we really don't support mothers after birthing. And that really contributes to a lot of the postpartum depression, and really not, even complications after birth. A lot of them can be prevented. But if you have that support system and you have like this advocacy unit, it really can change outcomes. And I think that, that this is amazing that we're going to have this program in Bridgeport. And I think that hopefully this is something that kind of moves to other areas as well, because it's definitely needed.
No, that's great. Are fathers involved in this process at all, or is this strictly focused on the mom?
So, you know what? Fathers are always involved. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about this program, they're going to talk about the person who's holding the child, but
Right.
obviously, fathers are a part of that family unit. So, in terms of, them coming out to the home and being a support, it's not just for the mother. They include the father as well. And there's also things that the father can do, which most of the time the community health worker does have, something, for the father, to actually focus on, because there are things that fathers can do during that process as well to help out with the bonding. It's not just, the mother having a child, it's the unit having a
Unit.
child. And
Yeah.
so that's a support system for the family.
Awesome. Awesome. So you were talking about, again, your kind of journey, and I know that in your CV, so to speak, you've done some academic research work at Yale and possibly other places. I want to talk about that, and I believe if you could define for the audience exactly what an epidemiologist is and does.
Sure. So actually I started when I came to Connecticut, when I moved to Connecticut from New York, after I did some programming, some community health programming, I actually moved into more of the behavioral sector. And so, Connecticut is definitely known for developmentally having a lot of facilities for developmental disabled people. And so I worked at an agency where I was a group home director, or a program manager. And after that, I moved over into more behavioral health, and I became a behavior specialist. A lot of people call them BCBAs or behavior specialists, but I did some behavior health work. And at that time, I started, I was in my master's program for public health, and my concentration was epidemiology.
That's
And
you.
so an epidemiologist basically studies disease patterns in populations. That's really the simple, the simple definition. We study disease patterns in populations. Most of the time, people have no idea what I do when I say I'm an epidemiologist,
That's one of the reasons why we're here.
except for now because of the pandemic, which
Okay.
unfortunately I was very excited about it because of my background being an epidemiologist. This is something that every one of us, dreams will happen, that will be, involved some way in this exciting thing. But unfortunately, it's not so exciting for the masses. But for us, in terms of our careers, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to live through a pandemic.
I was just about to say that is a perfect example of preparation meeting opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Because before that, we were predominantly used in mostly data fields. Like our field kind of overlaps with biostatisticians. We have very similar competencies. And so a lot of times epidemiologists usually do a lot of biostatistician work, which, to be honest with you, prior to the pandemic, I was doing research at the VA, and I completed my fellowship in neurology at Yale. And so I really was doing a lot of biostatistician work and, serving as a researcher. And it wasn't until the pandemic where I was really able to use other skills for studying disease patterns. And so that's what this was all about, during the pandemic. Nobody knew what this disease was, what was it doing to the population. And that's where an epidemiologist can use their skills to kind of investigate what's going on, what's the causes, where are the patterns, we are the investigators of medicine.
Okay, so question for you. Two questions, I believe. So one, so I work a lot with the reentry population, and what we've seen health-wise in the lack of continuity of care, that those individuals, when they come out, have a higher mortality and morbidity rate, much higher than the normal rate of the general population. But we also know that Black and brown people have higher instances of mortality and morbidity around hypertension and various other diseases like diabetes. That is exacerbated with the reentry population. Did you see anything like that happening with the post the pandemic, where it was impacting the Black and brown community higher or the reentry community higher?
Definitely. I think that the pandemic, to be honest with you, opened up a lot of the issues that we have already seen in Black and brown communities in terms of morbidity and mortality. I think that the scientific community, they know that it's there. But I think because of the way our country is set up with systematic racism and medical racism, unfortunately, It's kind of like the thorn that we don't really want to go over and touch. And so we know it's there, but we're really not acknowledging it. And I think that the being in a pandemic, it put everything on a international scale. So everybody was able to see everyone else's business, basically. And so I think that, when numbers came out and things were being published and they're like, why are Black and brown people dying disproportionately to their white counterparts during this pandemic? But I think it's because, to be honest with you, having those higher disease rates of different comorbidities such as, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, already happening in those communities with this condition that was respiratory. It really was a recipe for disaster. So those having those comorbidities actually did not help when you're dealing with a respiratory disease. And so therefore, you had people, Black and brown people, disproportionately dying. And so that's something where people were like, okay, well, we really need to look at this and see what can we do. And so now we see, going into post-pandemic, more education programs coming out, right? To educate our Black and brown communities, so that we can kind of change our behaviors, because a lot of that has to do with behavior. So you'll hear me teach a lot or come out with some programs, especially education programs, talking about self accountability and how we need to change our behavior and change our mindset of what can we actually do? What's in our power? How can we change? Because there's still going to be things systematically set up. But how can we, if we have to eat at McDonald's, how can we make better choices and decisions? If we have to shop at a bodega or a corner store, right, for food because there are not supermarkets in our area, right? How can we make healthier decisions? How can we, engage with physical activity, without going to the gym? The gym is not the only way that you can introduce physical activity into your life. Like, we all struggle with those things, but it's about making better choices. And so we teach a lot about that here. Go ahead, Kent.
So you also have the farmers market in some of the communities. They accept the SNAP benefits as well when that's being run. I believe it ended in late October, but it should be popping up in the spring with the farmers market, correct?
It should be. I think that that's another point. A good point is that, we really need to, realize that there are a lot of good resources in our community. Bridgeport has so many organizations and resources for the population. It's really just about, knowing about what's there. Like you said, just the farmers market, yes, they do accept SNAP benefits. And to be honest with you, most places do. Even if you go to farmers markets that are not in your area, most farmers markets accept SNAP benefits and provide vouchers that give you discounted rates. So that's something, that's really important. And I think also most people have transportation or access to transportation. I think one of the better places that needs to be advertised more are farmers markets around Connecticut, because the prices are honestly most of the time cheaper than a grocery store when you're talking about buying produce, because we're talking about farmers who, may be small farmers or, larger farmers. A lot of times they have a lot of produce that they want to get rid of because it doesn't match what the grocery stores want, right? They usually want something that looks particularly, round or, a certain color. And so you have these things called misfits that most of the time they get rid of, or they give to different organizations like City Harvest for free. And then that organization can give it out to the community. So I honestly think it's just about knowing your resources, in your area and in your state, so that you can go ahead and get some of those. Because to be honest with you, at this point in time, 2023, there are so many opportunities and so many resources for us to be able to get into.
That's great information. One of the things I want to kind of circle back to is, so with the pandemic and the light being shined upon, the health disparities in our communities, there's also been a wealth of funding that's been kind of pushed from the feds into some of our communities. But I want to know, one, is that helping to close the gap? There's a lot of gaps in the health disparities between Black and Brown and our Caucasian fellow Americans. And with that, there's also just been a whittling away of public health. And we saw how important public health is during the pandemic. This funding that's been coming in, is it restructuring, is it buffering, or is it just going to be here for a minute? And because we have short memories, it's going to be like, forget that the pandemic happened, and we're not going to really support people like you in public health. And what does that mean to you?
So this is a complex question. But I think, to be honest with you, I don't think we'll ever be able to just ignore what happened during the pandemic. I think that, you know, there were too many lights being shined on some of this health inequity. So I don't think that we'll ever be able to turn our backs on it. What I do think is that we need to do more education or acknowledgement of what happened in the past so that we can kind of move forward. I think that that has never really been addressed during a pandemic. I don't think that anybody really came out and said, listen, people are calling it vaccine hesitancy. And, you know, the Black and Brown community still, we're not getting this equity of vaccine and, like, you know, being, you know, seen or going to the hospital, like what's going on. I don't think nobody ever really came to the table and addressed it on a federal or state level. So I think, you know, we have a lot of work to do moving forward in terms of education, right? However, funding, there is a lot of funding coming in. I don't think that funding is going to last forever. But what I do think is that people's mindsets have changed somewhat. And hopefully the money that they are getting and the money that they have in their budgets, hopefully they use that more wisely. So when it comes to programming, when it comes to, you know, closing the gaps, hopefully they're including those ideas or those areas that are really important and using their funding, whether it's coming in or whether it's existing, to tackle some of those issues. Because, you know, we're going to deal with this. This is not something that's just gonna, okay, post, you know, whatever, and it's like 1 to 3 years. This is something that's going to happen into the future, because we're talking about mental health. You know, we're seeing all these rippling effects. This is not something that's just going to go away. So I don't think that people are going to have any opportunity to say, okay, the door is closed from the pandemic and everything that happened from it, and we're no longer going to be able to fund, or we're no longer going to be able to be forward thinking. I don't see that happening. But I do see, you know, the faucet in terms of funding, you know, drying up soon. I mean, I don't think that, you know, the state or at a federal level, that they're just going to continue to pour in the amount of money that they have during the pandemic and directly after. I think that it will trickle off eventually. But I just think that people's mindsets and how they use their money for programming will change.
Striking while the iron's hot. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left, and this has been about you talking about your journey and your what else do you want to share about yourself and your journey, and however you want to present it, or whether you want to finish talking about more public health stuff. Your 2 minutes.
So I think what I will say, being an African-American woman from New Haven, Connecticut, you know, I think that it's important for us to know that, you know, we do have opportunities. We do have resources. I think that part of, you know, where I am today is basically determination. You know, there were plenty of times that I feel like I could have given up, but I think that if you really want, you know, advanced education, you can definitely do it. And I think that the best feeling that I get is when I walk in a room and I see, you know, a female or a young African-American male, you know, kind of look at me and, you know, can identify with me and say, can I talk to you? Because I think that it's relatable when I tell them where I'm from. they feel that they can aspire to do what they want to do. So I think, as being an epidemiologist, a Black woman in this very scientific field, very specialized, where I don't really see barely anybody that looks like me, I think it's important for us to really go into some of those areas. We're underrepresented in research, we're underrepresented in medicine. Those are areas that we need to go in and we need to tackle. We can't be afraid of math and science. So that's what I would leave the community, because I won't be around forever. And I definitely think that we need to keep that representation going.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Thank you for your time, Director Jackson. Hopefully we can have you back up talking about some of the other fabulous programs that you're implementing and helping out in the community. But I really appreciate your time, and your story is amazing. I'm sure there's a lot that we didn't get to, so next time, hopefully we can.
Thank you for having me anytime.
Have a blessed day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was an amazing, amazing amount of information that we were just given. I think the work that's being done by our public health officials is just phenomenal, especially given the fact that, again, the amount of disparities that are in our community. So, but with that being said, we did for a moment have our next guest coming up. We just talked a lot about mental health and physical health, and I wanted to bring attention to the need for self-care, and we're going to have Miss Winter Carson up to discuss, or as she's better known as Madame Blush, Madame Blush. Like I said, we just talked about physical and mental health. I think a part of that physical and mental health is about self-care, and with this again being Women's History Month and yesterday being International Women's Day, I wanted to get someone up here that could really discuss the importance of self-care. It's Black-owned business, and we have Miss Winter Carson. Hi, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm good. How are you?
I am well, blessed and highly favored. So tell us about yourself. Tell us, about Blush, and just share with us the importance of self-care and how you provide that and what you do for the community. Both men.
So, Winter Carson, I'm the owner of Blush Beauty and Wellness. It is a treatment center where holistic healing meets clinical health. I really am devoted to skincare. I'm devoted to women empowerment. I'm devoted to mental stability. And I really did my best to create a safe place where clients can relax, renew, restore, and release. I took my mask off and I was just into the session, and I have special permission from a client who is in the compression care at the moment to do the explant interview. But my compression care, along with the facial bed, along with UV light sauna therapy, are just some of the pieces that I incorporate into treatments that really allow my clients to have a moment of breath. I think the pandemic, for a fact, has taken a toll on everyone, not only the mental health but physical health. So whether you just need a moment to sit and relax and smell aromatherapy and listen to relaxing notes and music, or you need a full body transformation to elevate and release the toxins and allow the congestion and inflammation in the body to be at rest, the Blush Beauty and Wellness is that space. It's a holistic center, so there are lots of natural ingredients in skincare. And for those who are suffering from extreme skin conditions, I can approach it in a clinical manner. But either way, it's really focused on just being a relaxing, safe place. Because it's so needed in our community, and we don't often get time to take off our capes or put down our hats. We have to go do this and attend to this and help with that. I really try to focus, and I thank my clients for not coming to visit me, but for giving themselves some time. You included.
Indeed, indeed. I believe it is called the Dapper Dan package for men. It's how I stay so clear. And I'm sure I'm due for an appointment in the next couple of weeks, if not sooner.
I'll
Uh,
be seeing you.
I appreciate you coming on board. Question for you. So how long have you started? Like tell us about your journey. And I also believe that you're a part of something with Quinnipiac as well. If you want to share that with us.
I am. So I've been in the cosmetology field for over 10 years. I started in retail, fresh out of cosmetology school, um, managing some of your favorite beauty retailer stores, and I've learned the inside secret and what's missing, um, who the retailers are actually aiming towards, where our people are seeing that. And I have devoted so much time to the beauty industry and applying cosmetics. And I really wanted to take it 360 and approach it in a wellness way. Something that isn't really highlighted when they're doing makeup applications is the skincare. A lot of skin prep is needed for these makeup applications to look good. And one of my least favorite terms in this field is cover up. It's a term for like foundations and concealers. A cover up. It's kind of a old school term, but it's still around nonetheless. And I really wanted to uncover what a lot of our people were covering up with foundations and concealers. So I
Mhm.
took that approach when COVID hit to really devote my practice to making people feel good and not just look good. And that has evolved over time. In the Quinnipiac University cohort that I'm taking here at the lab at Concord has allowed me to um, not only stay focused on that mission, but to remind myself that it is further than this small room. I'm very active in the youth in New Haven. I volunteer and work on a lot of after school programs um, with the younger children, middle age, high school kids. And I was at one point blessed with the opportunity to give back with a program that is no longer available, but it sparked the Blessed Initiative. And the Blessed Initiative is the after school program that I'm perfecting the business plan for while I'm in the cohort, which steps outside of this space and steps inside the schools and allows the blessed the blessed experience to be given to the students in a way of life skills and career management. Because there's so many ways, there's so many paths that you can go in cosmetology. I really wanted to show that to the students. And the life skills prep allows them to not only take what social media gives them to look good for the gram and, applying these lashes and doing these hairstyles and tapering your own cuts, but how to apply those skills that you're learning on social media, apply those skills that I'm teaching in the classroom to get that job interview, to be, ready for approaching someone for a loan or take that business step, to look the part. I feel like there's so much power in cosmetics that it needed to be taught in a different way. So I'm trying my best to perfect that business plan and to approach tech schools as well for the young ladies and gentlemen who are interested in the field and taking that hairstyling course or taking that cosmetology course. I like to take them and expose them to the field in a deeper way. So whether it be partnering with me in a Blessed Initiative or prepping them for job interviews at their favorite beauty supply store, I really want to make it an outreach impact. So Quinnipiac is allowing me to do that as well.
So we have about 2 minutes. And I just want to see if you could touch upon and you kind of talked about it, but even like with our young folks and even in our older folks in the community, the kind of, there's a lot to being Black. There's a lot to being Black, and it's how that's associated with the standards of beauty in the world versus Eurocentric point of view of what beauty is. How do you communicate to the young folks and the old folks how beautiful we as Black people are, with makeup, without makeup, or try to hinder them from doing stuff that might damage them, like the bleaching and the different things?
So the
No,
first thing that I 2 minutes. The first thing I tell every client is you're beautiful without this. No matter if you're paying your top dollar or you're just asking a simple question, you're beautiful without it. Second thing is I stress sunscreen. because it's not a makeup product, it's very well a skincare product. And I never want my clients to be overwhelmed. So I tell them to wear their sunscreen daily because it does protect. We always want to say black don't crack. It's a saying for eternity, but it in fact will. And it can if you don't properly take care of it. So cleansing the skin, soothing the skin, and moisturizing the skin are key notes in proper skincare, whether you're 16 or 65. And my eldest client to date was 96, and she was able to grasp that concept even in her minimalistic ways. So that's definitely what I stress. It's very important.
Okay, well, thank you. And that does conclude our time, but tell folks where they can reach you and how can they make an appointment. You have an online process.
Absolutely. So I'll just give a little bit of a 360. You can visit my location, Blush Beauty and Wellness, Concourse at the Lab, which is on the corner of Newhall and Moore Street. You can find me at 203-676-0474 if you want a direct contact to my phone number, or my Instagram is Blush Beauty Studio _. And you can find all of my work in action, makeup artistry, and skincare on that page.
Thank you very much, Madam Blush. Appreciate having you. Hopefully we can speak with you again after that competition is won.
Thank you so much. I'm speaking that into existence. We'll have a whole new setup and location after that. Thank you so much. You guys. Yeah.
Have a blessed day.
Well, wear your sunscreen, guys.
Okay, we talked a little bit about education and working in the schools with our youngins. Right now, again, for a woman to tell her own narrative, which is the theme of Women's History Month, and yesterday being International Women's Day, we have Arden Santana, who is the creator and founder of Sage Academy, and also concurrently running a program on developing well-rounded children, I believe. I might have that incorrect. She'll correct me, I'm sure. But welcome, Arden. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, everybody. Thank you so much. So as Earl said, my name is Arden Santana, founder of Sage Academy, which is a private alternative to traditional schools, whose educational philosophy positions civic education along with reading, writing, and arithmetic as the pillars of literacy to raise capable, responsible, well, to educate capable, responsible, and caring contributors to the global society. And we deliver on our promise to families who we partner with in educating children by collaborating with businesses, organizations, and members of the community who believe in our vision. So one such collaborative program that we are conducting right now is called Raising Highly Capable Kids. And it's a parenting curriculum, research-based, that provides parents with tools known as developmental assets that the research shows the more assets that a child has access to and in their lives significantly reduces the chances of them becoming involved in the adverse behaviors that we would prefer that our children not get involved in. Drugs, prison pipeline, those types of things. So Raising Highly Capable Kids just began last night. It is a 13-week or 13-hour program, let's say it that way. I'm currently running the first cohort on Thursdays from 6:30 to 7:30. And we are able to take up to 7 more parents for next week. After the second session, we can't allow any new parents in. But I've gone through the training myself, currently facilitating. Great feedback last night from the 3 parents that participated, and everybody's excited to come back again next week. So I would love to invite 7 more parents in to come in and just, build community with other parents where you can figure out who has shared values and get the support that's needed for women and fathers alike in raising children. And I don't know, Earl, do you have a question for me, or do I have opportunity to share one more?
I wanted you to get that out, but I know you have a heavy focus on civic engagement and civic education, so that the students can be aware of the power of the community. When the federal government talks about being there for the people, and the people have the power, you you provide a strong emphasis on that. And I also just want to know where did this come from? This urge, this passion to start your own education. Where did you see the lack in what's already out there and how to fill that gap?
Okay, so this started as a child for me, where most of my peers played, certain games. I played school. That was fun for me. And transitioning into motherhood, where I knew that I would homeschool my children. And it was, so let me go back a bit. I became a public school teacher. That was for 8 years total in Maryland and Connecticut. So I was able to see public school inside, outside, as a parent, as a teacher, in administrative levels. And I was driven out by No Child Left Behind, education policy that just sort of stifled the passion in me for teaching. And then I became a mom and I needed to educate them. So I've just been, every job I've held since high school has been in education. Sage Academy evolved out of not being able to get around providing education at the elementary level. I always preferred high school. So having my own children, I couldn't get around it. Pre-COVID, I'm offering online classes in language arts and social studies for 6 to 9-year-olds who just gave me all the feels. I enjoyed, working with that group, and I didn't think I had that level of interest in it. And then COVID hit, and there became a need. There became a demand for Arden, help me academically with my child. So that actually is how Sage started. And we were virtual initially, and we've just sort of, scaled serendipitously into being able to have a brick and mortar location. But it was my own involvement years, just around the time of my second birth, where I was learning more about the judicial branch of government, which I feel people sort of omit in conversations about government. We talk about, what the legislative branch is doing wrong. We talk about what the executive branch is doing wrong. And folks.
One point of emphasis, there are many people that don't know the 3 different branches of government, just to be fair.
Exactly. No, thank you, because they don't. And so you've answered my question. Why do I do this? Because there are many people, adults, who don't know what those branches are. And those who do don't know maybe the impact that the judicial branch has on law. So there was that piece. And then from the National Assessment of Education Progress, it's a national report that comes out that assesses the nation's performance in pretty much most of the subject areas. The last time, I think 2018 would be the most recent report in civics. Less than 25% of our nation's eighth graders are proficient in civics education. Okay. And that's not assessed. Now, civics education being awareness of how to engage with our government, with our world, basically everything we do is civic. We're engaging in civics, whether we know it or not. So we don't obviously know this coming out of 8th grade. It's not assessed in 12th grade, which that's what baffled me. As students are entering into the adult world, where we're supposed to satisfy the mission statement of the majority of school systems across the country, because I looked at them and they're changing now, but they say things like, producing productive citizens of society. In similar fashion, they say that same thing. How do you deliver on that when we're not making sure that our students are civically literate when they're graduating into the world after 12th grade and supposed to become adult citizens? So that's just it. That's what Sage does. Sage is filling that gap in civic ignorance.
Okay. So what other things do you have going on? I know that you are an aspiring law student or pre-law student. You want to talk about that? We have about 2 minutes.
Okay, so Yale Access to Law School, that's why I came in late, because I was actually fulfilling one part of what that program does to support our journey through applying to law school. So it serves people like me who's a second lifer. I'm an educator, but I developed this interest in law through my experiences with, having self-represented myself in cases, this whole civic awareness piece. It just opened a love and a passion for me in law. So the opportunity presented to be able to go through Yale's Access to Law Fellowship, which takes 2 years to prepare us to be able to apply for law school. And we get one-on-one coaching. We have academies, a supportive group of colleagues and coaches and things like that. So just coming from a one-on-one session just before the show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One last thing, last minute before we get kicked off the air here by Mr. Harry, the producer. How can folks find out more about Sage Academy? How can folks donate or support your effort in this educating our youth civically?
Everyone can go to ardensantana.com and you will be able to access everything that I have going on in my world, which is all civically and community engaged. So my name is in the corner of my box, however you're seeing that, and it's ardensantana.com. You can get access to Sage. Give me about the end of today to put a link to a major community investment opportunity. We're planning for April 8th with another organization that I'm senior management for. So yeah, there's an inaugural tribute celebrating a community economic development plan that we're putting on April 8th. And I really want people to know about that. So it's a link tree that will be on the ardensantana.com space. So to be able to get more information about that. So definitely please check out ardensantana.com. Go once, go twice, go to later, go tomorrow, because we need to update it with the April tribute that's coming up. We're looking for sponsors, vendors in New Haven and greater surrounding area community members to join us.
Great, thank you. And we'll make sure to get this spread around and tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you again, Earl, for having me.
Thank you for coming up. Thank you for doing the great work that you do in the community. Keep it up. Stay blessed.
Thank you. Can't stop, won't stop.
No doubt. Well, guys, we've had a full complement of folks, but you'll notice throughout this whole show of these women doing this great work in the community that the pandemic was a kind of through line that kind of brought out a lot of stuff that was needed and showed the gaps in our community. And these women are bridging that gap. And we as community members need to support them. And we as men need to support them. So looking forward to having more discussion. All right, people, have a blessed day. Thank you, Tom Ficklin. Thank you, Harry. Awesome, awesome day.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Lights, camera, action, I'm ready to go.